It's been 3 years since I started this channel, and boy has it been a blast. Taking your requests, making reviews, and filming vlogs that no one watches. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. But when I started this journey, there was one story that I always wanted to talk about. Piercing the Heavens, which is like one of the best fanfics ever, you should totally check it out. We're also going to be meeting Calm Wind. It's probably written one of the best fanfics I've ever read. Yeah, I think I mentioned this before in one of my previous videos, but probably Piercing the Heavens. My favorite fan fiction, Piercing the Heavens. The epic Soren Dash story that is way better than it has any right to be. Unfortunately, there's a couple of problems with that. First, it's not finished yet. You can't really review it. Second, it's the third in the series, and going out of order is one line I will not cross. So let's begin with the story that started it all, Head in the Clouds. And full disclosure, yes, I know the author, and yes, he could easily beat the crap out of me if he was, for any reason, upset with me. However, as the most ethical fanfiction reviewer on YouTube, I will remain unbiased. Also, Calm's a cool guy who can take a little bit of heat. I hope. Anyway, one day Rainbow Dash wakes up to find that the Wonderbolts are come to town. As you would expect, she gets on the hype train, much to the annoyance of her friends. After the performance, she and her pals hang out at the bakery, where, surprise surprise, the Wonderbolts themselves decide to throw their after party. It's here where we are introduced to the 4 lead members, who can all be characterized by how much respective chill they have. First, there is Fleetfoot, who's about 75% chill. She's fast, loves having fun, and isn't worried about breaking a few rules. Then there's Spitfire, who's about 25% chill. She can have a good time when she wants, but she isn't afraid to lay down the law. Next there's Soren, who's about 50% chill, a nice happy medium. He's goofy, charismatic, yet is quick to anger and lets his job get in the way of his personal life. More on that later. Finally, there's Rapid Fire, who is 100% douchebag. After a bit of mingling, the team says that they'd like to take a couple weeks off, and Applejack invites them all to stay at her farm. With that convenient and slightly convoluted setup out of the way, it's time for the shipping to begin. But first, let's get some small things out of the way. It's important to note that this story was originally a one-shot. If you're not up to date on all the fan fiction lingo, one-shot basically translates to screw pacing, give shipping now. As you would expect, the story moves really quickly, especially compared to the author's later works. You remember that little synopsis I just gave earlier? That all happened in the first chapter. The pacing itself doesn't make or break the story by any means, but there are some side effects. For example, the exposition can be a little on the nose at times. When Rainbow Dash hangs out with Spitfire and Fleetfoot for the first time, the narrator just flat out tells you who these people are. This is exposition which could have easily been expressed through dialogue, and yet is shoved in the reader's face. Later, when Rainbow Dash and Soren are hanging out, we are told that they share stories, have some laughs, and share some lovely banter. You know, all the stuff that I would love to actually see in a shipfic. To be fair, not all exposition or character building comes through these blunt statements, but it would have been nice if the author had taken the time to actually expand on those moments. With that said, let's talk shipping. When it comes to romance, or any story for that matter, you need characters to drive it. First, we got Rainbow Dash, who is written on point. The author successfully managed to capture her competitive and smug nature, while also adding some interesting dimensions to her. Given that she's a big Wonderbolt fan, she has an incredible eye for detail. In the opening performance, she isn't just simply in awe of the show, but she also takes notice of their techniques, in hopes of using them for herself. But the one thing I was most impressed with was how the author was able to tie in her element of harmony with the actual romance itself. You see, Rainbow Dash wasn't romantically enamored with Soren from the get-go. Sure, he's a goofy, likable dude who also happens to be a Wonderbolt, but it isn't until Soren helps out her 2 closest friends, before things get serious. In the first incident, Soren comes across Scootaloo, who's preparing to have a flying lesson with Rainbow. He notices that she has stunted wings and tells her that she will have trouble flying. It's a little harsh. But then, Soren tells her that he had stunted wings and is now a Wonderbolt. It's a lie, but it gets Scootaloo even more pumped. So he gives her some workout tips and goes on his day. Point 1 for Soren. In the second incident, Rapid Fire starts creeping on Fluttershy big time, and Soren gets mad. This results in a big old fight between the teammates, and when Spitfire comes along, she gets mad at both of them because this breaks regulations or something. But Soren doesn't care. He was defending this mare's honor. In the end, Rainbow starts falling for a guy who helps out the ponies to whom she is the most loyal. How's that for fitting? Next, we got Soren, who I introduced earlier. In a nutshell, Soren is a cool dude. Goofy, charismatic, but he's also a little disillusioned. When it comes to romance, most potential girlfriends would either be gold diggers or starstruck fans. So he struggles to differentiate between shallow attraction versus the real thing. So when Rainbow puts out the idea of dating, he shoots her down with excuses that feel rehearsed, showing that he's obviously done this before. She kinda gets it, but not really. It's awkward. Speaking of which, it's important to note that Head in the Clouds focuses more on the beginning of a relationship, where everything is weird and confusing. Do I like this person? Do they like me back? Would dating them be a good idea, or would it end in disaster? These are the main issues that our characters deal with, and as someone who was in a romantic relationship recently, this actually feels a little authentic. It also helps that at no point do our leads actually use the love word, which not only feels too real, but it's also a sign of good restraint on the author's end. Anyway, things get weird between Rainbow and Soren, and it doesn't take long for their friends to notice. Spitfire confronts Soren head on, but he doesn't budge. Fleetfoot chats it up with Rainbow and gets the full story. Fleet gets annoyed at Soren's stubbornness and encourages Rainbow to confront him to call him out on this BS. Unsurprisingly, he doesn't take this too well and starts hurling some nasty shade at her that kinda comes out of nowhere. I get that you can say some horrible things when you're mad, but even then his response feels a little excessive. So this starts the fight phase in the romance arc.jpg, and it is unpleasant. Everyone's moody, and we're all just waiting for the run to airport.gif, where they all make up and all is good. In this case, the airport is actually a giant tornado that threatens to destroy the entire town. Oh, I can hear you say. This is where Rainbow and Soren have to team up to stop the disaster, and then they make up, and then they live happily ever after. You're sort of right. As a lead member of the weather team, Rainbow leads the charge to stop the storm in its track. And at first, all seems to be going well, but then her team starts getting picked off one at a time, until Rainbow is the only one who remains. What is happening? Oh my gosh, it's the Shadow Bolts! Those characters from the first episode that you thought were just illusions, but are actually real! Holy and they're laying down some thick shade, man. They're like, whoa, we got this, we're gonna destroy you all, blah, blah, blah. But the Wonderbolts show up and it's like, what's going on? Bam! Oh my gosh, they're knocked out. It's like a triple KO. Shadow Bolts are like, you ain't got nothing on us, you got nothing. And then Soren, he's in bad shape, man. Everyone's beating the out of him, right? But then Rainbow Dash is like, you ain't gonna do that. She performs Soren's special move, Chekhov's gun, and BAM! KO's story. This one right here, yeah, she beats her up. But Soren's still in bad shape, man. And they're like, they take a moment, like, okay, we gotta take out the crystal. The crystal's the thing's controlling the tornado thing. So we got Dash fighting Nightshade. Soren is fighting Descent. Bum 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 bum. Oh my goodness. It's brutal. It's brutal. Rainbow Dash breaks Nightshade's arm. Yeah, we're talking breaking bones. Yeah, so hardcore. But Nightshade returns the favor and starts just beating crap out, and it's looking like it's over. Then we got Spitfire showing up. That's right, she tags in. She is not out of this game, and she lost to boom, boom, boom. So now Rainbow Dash is free to help Soren, and Soren uses this lightning attack. Boom! Hits Descent. Rainbow Dash comes back and hits Descent from the head. Boom! And then Soren goes and destroys the crystal. Boom! Next, Rainbow Dash is knocked out by this big explosion and is electrocuted. Oh my gosh, so many injuries. And Soren catches her, and they tumble to the ground. Woo! Oh, and the Soren, the Shadow Bolts fly off, and they're like defeated, and they're like, oh, we'll be back, you rascals. Ah! And then Soren collapses due to his many injuries. And everybody's really sad, and Soren's he's so bad, and Rainbow Dash is like, oh, doctor, what's gonna happen to Soren? And then he's like, well, my diagnosis is that he is royally Did somebody say royally? Celestia Ex Machina. That's right, dear children, it is I, your great princess, and I have come with a cure for Soren. A cure developed by the Dark Lord Sombra. A spell so dark, it might even kill me. But why would you take that risk for one measly wonderbolt? Because I have had a premonition of a great evil that only Soren will be able to prevent. Now, I will need 2 volunteers with a close tie to Soren. So yes, Spitfire, you've known him for his whole life. And the chick who's known him for about 3 weeks. Yeah, we'll go with that. Anyway, it'll be simple. We just go into his head and wake him up from his nightmare. Or something. I haven't really thought this out. Well, that doesn't sound too bad. Well, I'm scarred for life. Yeah, but it all worked out in the end. Anyway, what happened to Celestia? Oh, I don't know. She kind of like passed out after Discord showed up. Yeah, he's here too. He was like, you're gonna regret this, Celestia. It's pretty bad juju. And it just got kind of ominous from there. Wow, I can't wait to see that paid off in the 3rd story. Anyway, but what about us, Rainbow? How are we gonna do this? I mean, we live so far away. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like a whole scene transition. In fact, how long would it take me to get from Ponyville to your base of operations? I don't know. Let's do some math. Caroline. Okay, Caroline's probably where the Wonderbolts are located, somewhere around here. So, can't really tell the distance, but I would say it's around, let's be generous, say 100 miles. Alright, okay. Let's see. According to Death Battle, our top speed is 3,800 miles per hour. 3,800 miles per hour. Okay, wait. Okay, let's see, okay. Distance divided by rate. Okay, gotcha. 100 divided by 300. Okay, that equals... Alright, about 0.026. That's 0.026 hours. Times that by 60 equals 1.57 minutes. Wow, that doesn't sound too bad at all. Yeah, maybe we should do this thing. I send you letters sometimes, you stop by, I don't know. Sound good? Yeah, let's do it. Kiss! Okay, where do I start? We got a big tonal shift, villains that come out of left field, an ending that leaves more questions than answers. Yeah, by all means, this ending is, not great. When I finished Head in the Clouds all those years ago, I remember feeling confused. I thought this was going to be a straightforward romance, but instead I got some weird slice of life and Dragon Ball Z hybrid that somehow makes less sense than Dragon Ball Z. I recently had the privilege of meeting Calmwind at this year's Cider Fest. When I brought up this story, he had this look in his eye, as if recalling some embarrassing childhood memory that only he remembers. He then shared some insight that changed my perspective on the story. Specifically, that he made up the whole thing as he was going along. The huge tonal shift? Turns out he got bored and was, quote, on a giant DBZ kick at the time. The weird Celestia and Inception-inspired nightmare sequence? He had no idea where he was going with that. In fact, Flying Sky High and Piercing the Heavens, the sequels, seemed to be his attempt to make sense of the mess that he had created. But those ended up being a couple of really cool stories, so I guess it all worked out in the end. Despite my criticisms, a part of me still likes Head in the Clouds. Sure, it's a messy and bizarre tale that combines a familiar romance story arc with out-of-the-blue action sequences, villains, and exposition that won't pay off further down the line. However, characterization was pretty good for the most part, and the romance, for what little there is, was handled pretty decently. Heck, even the action sequence itself isn't terrible at face value, it's just out of place. Finally, whether or not the ending is good by any objective means, it still managed to leave an impression on me. One that made me confused, yet curious. Underneath the mess, there was potential, so when I learned that a sequel had been written, I decided to give it a shot. But that will be a review for another day. Alright, time for the official sandwich rating, because this is one gimmick that I am for sure gonna stick with. Head in the Clouds is a meatball sandwich that tastes good, but it falls apart the moment you bite into it. With a better bun, it could have held up a lot better. The bun being a metaphor for like story structure and, you know, actual plans, whatever. Anyway, I'll review the sequel eventually. But first I gotta finish a certain kaiju related crossover that is way too freaking long. Seriously people, I would probably get these reviews done faster if you requested shorter ones. Does every story have to be over 100,000 words? I'm not Superman. Why do you people